everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting Ranunculus Corms, and if you haven't seen my previous video, I actually used some corms that I had harvested and stored over the winter to start some Ranunculus Corms inside, and I actually have some pretty exciting news with that. Some of them have started putting out buds. So I was questioning whether or not my storage method was going to work for this year, since this was my first year growing ranunculus, and certainly my first year harvesting and storing them once the leaves had died back. So the first thing we're going to do is I have about 15, 16 different kinds of ranunculus here, and I'm going to go through the different varieties that I'm growing this year. The first one are ones that I harvested last year. Let's see where the other bag is. So this is a pink and white mixture, and I got that from Dutch Grown, and I'm really excited. I ordered from the Flower Hat for the first time this year, and I've seen other kind of YouTubers and other growers locally use the Flower Hat with really good success with their ranunculus. I really enjoy following him on Instagram as well, and so I wanted to buy from his store this year now that I know more about ranunculus. So from his store, I got Ranunculus Violet. Let's see here. I also got Ranunculus Rose. I have to sort through these here. Ranunculus Super Green Brick. I think this one's gonna be really unique. Ranunculus Chocolate, which I am stoked also for kind of the uniqueness of this color and style of flower. I also got Ranunculus Salmon. Now we'll also be starting some anemones today. I've never grown anemones before. They're a little daunting, I'm a little nervous about it, but you know, everything I've heard is that it's very similar to preparing your ranunculus, so fingers crossed, let's see how this goes. From the Flower Hat, I got Anemone Pink, and I believe that was it from the Flower Hat. The other group I bought from this year is Nicole at Flower Hill Farm. I was really excited that she was offering, she buys her corms bulk, and she was able to buy extra so that she could offer some corms to her customers. From her, I got Brilliant. I got 5 of those. I got Amandine Black and Half Clone Juliette. Also got, oh, I missed one here. Amandine Purple Jean. Jean, I don't know how people like to say that one. And then I also got 2 varieties of anemones from her as well, Galilee Blue and Marianne Panda. I also snagged some corms from Mara at the farm at Oxford, and I got, and I'm probably going to butcher this one, Ciclamino Pink. I'm really excited about this one. It's super, super bright hot pink. And Bianco Sfumato, S-F-U-M-A-T-O. Again, probably butchering that. And then I also couldn't help myself and got some mixes from Eden Brothers. I got the Vineyard mix, the Secret Garden mix, and the White Picotee mix. So I'm actually really excited to see how all of these stack up against one another and kind of help me kind of curate my buying list for next year. The vast majority is, I've only ever grown the white and the pink, so all of these other varieties are new to me. So I'm really excited about this. Now, if you watch my other video, you'll see that Ranunculus Corms start off as these awful looking shriveled little, they look like octopus to me, or like a shriveled up spider, and they need to be rehydrated. So what I've actually snagged here is I've got kind of 5 bowls here that I will be filling with water to pre-soak my corms for about 3.5 hours. I found that 3.5 is kind of the sweet spot between soaking long enough but not so long that they're prone to rot or to develop kind of mold and mildew. So what I've also done to keep all of these straight is pre-created labels that I will be putting into these organza bags. Now I bought these last year because I don't really like to use pesticides in my garden. I have 2 dogs and I just really try to avoid them whenever possible. So instead of spraying my dahlias last year, I actually just covered the blooms with organza bags, and this really helped reduce any kind of pest pressure on my plants. Today we're actually going to use them to kind of keep the Ranunculus Corms separate, kind of each variety separate, so that they don't get all mixed up together, because I would ideally like to plant things out by color into my raised beds this spring. Now we will soak these for 3.5 hours, and then we'll put them, I'll show you the rest of the process, but we're gonna put them in a channel tray, again, trying to keep them divided. I am going to use these. I actually like these when it comes to dividing your corms, because you can actually just set this in the channel tray so that you know which section of your channel tray is what variety. So I'm gonna be using these doubly today. So the first thing first, I'm going to fill each of my bags with the corms and get them ready to go into the buckets. This is Violet. Make sure I'm not missing any. Oh, I missed one. That's why I always check. So this is Violet. I'm going to find the Violet tab. Put that guy in here. That. Tie it up. He's gonna go in one of the bins here, and that way it keeps it nice and separated. See here. I also have smaller ones. I may default to using these later just so that they're not quite in such big bags, but these do double or larger in size, so I like to give the corms plenty of room to expand. Last year, when it was just kind of the 1 or 2 varieties, I just put them all together in a bowl. It doesn't have to be fancy, and if you don't care where things go in your garden, don't worry about it. Now guys, I think this is really interesting to point out. This is less than half of the Ranunculus corms that I harvested last year. My corms, I got 40 of them from Dutch Grown, 20 white, 20 pink. And when I went to harvest them after the leaves had yellowed and died back later in my summer here in 5B, South Denver, Colorado, they had multiplied by a significant margin. I think when I counted, I ended up with about 250 separate corms. Like this one is going to need its own bowl because that is a lot of ranunculus. I'm gonna actually put that in one of my bigger bowls all on its own. I'm gonna fill this to the brim and actually leave it in the sink. So now let's go into my other varieties here. And I like to save these bags. They're paper bags. I could recycle them. I will likely just kind of keep them where I store all of the other kind of parts and pieces to my garden and then reuse them in the fall, especially since I'm hopeful to be able to do the same thing I did last year in storing all of these well and reusing them for the kind of the following year. I'm really also very hopeful that things will multiply the way they did this year so that I can share with friends and family, because last year was my first year, like I said, growing ranunculus, and have quickly become my absolute favorite flower. Okay, so 3 bags to this one bowl is probably plenty for this one. Set that aside, so it's out of the way. I'll have to find these bags that Mara sent her corms in are really nice. They're even like a plastic lined to keep the moisture out. I really, really like this packaging. I think in total I ended up with about 215 or 220 newly purchased ranunculus, and I think about 40 anemones. I'm really excited about growing anemones. They're every picture I've seen of an anemone is just the most beautiful thing, and I am really excited to hopefully not screw it up this year. We'll see. Some people suggest to like soak your corms overnight or for like 6 hours, and just don't know that it's necessary. When I soak my corms for at least 3.5 to 4 hours, they plump up beautifully, and I've had such good success with the ones I even stored from last year. I had about a 90% success rate with how I've done it here, and this is something I've learned from other YouTubers and gardeners who have been nice enough to share their education and their experience, and that way I don't have to make the same mistakes or learn quite so hard as others who are doing it for the first time. So this one is only 5. I will say I would love to buy more of the specialty corms. Oh, and I actually got 6 in this one instead of 5. That was nice. I have a hard time stomaching paying like $25 or $30 for 5 corms, but I do love the look of the butterfly ranunculus and the specialty ranunculus. So I think as I build things up and I'm not having to repurchase quite so many of these varieties, I will start spending more on the specialty varieties, and that way I can increase my stock here in those specialty corms. Excited to show you guys what this looks like when everything plumps up. It's like magic. They get to be, you know, 2 and 3 times their size in just a couple of hours. It's really quite remarkable. Sometimes these ones with the green centers kind of creep me out when I see them in pictures, but they just look so cool and unique that I really wanted to at least try them this year. I know that's weird. I know that's definitely a me thing and not a most people thing, but it's just how I see it. I really probably could have gotten away with the really small organza bags, but then my tags wouldn't fit. And again, this gives them lots and lots of space to expand. I had high ambitions for saving these bags, but I'm kind of destroying them as I open them, so they'll probably get tossed. I'll keep what I can. I bought these organza bags for like $10 for a pack of like over 100 on Amazon. It really is, and I reuse and reuse and reuse and plan on reusing them a bunch this year with all of my dahlias. I just place them over the buds, cinch them, and that way none of the bugs can attack the buds. That way I have beautiful blooms without having to spray.
And here we are simply filling our bowls, making sure that the ranunculus are well covered so that they can each soak for about 3.5 hours. Again, our goal is to make sure that they are covered. And I like to agitate the bag every once in a while to make sure that there's good oxygen in the water.
All right, guys, here we are 3.5 hours later, and I'm going to show you what we're working with. This is the Amandine Black. You want these guys to be nice and plump. You can see that they are well hydrated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put these guys into my pre-moistened soil, about an inch layer of it here at the bottom of my channel tray. And we are just going to stack these ranunculus one after another into the channel tray, into slightly pre-moistened soil. And they can really go right on top of one another. We're just pre-sprouting. This is not where we're going to be growing them on indefinitely, so we don't need to give them a ton of space necessarily. So we're just gonna get these guys into the bin, and I'm just going to rinse and repeat with all of these varieties. What I'm gonna use these for is I'm actually going to set them in between each of the varieties so we know where they are. Again, now we have our chocolate. And if any of yours seem kind of shriveled still or not well hydrated, let them soak a little longer. You really want them to look nice and plump. Now, you don't have to do the pre-sprouting stage necessarily, or pardon me, the 10-day pre-sprout inside, but you really should pre-soak kind of this process before you put them outside. You don't want your corms will not hydrate properly if you just put them right back outside, especially in my zone. So we are just going to repeat and hope we have enough space for all of these. Now you might notice that some of the little tentacles, because you're putting them tentacle side down, you want to be kind of gentle with them here. You don't want to break too many of those tentacles off. That's where they will have some growth points. They're like if you've ever grown a clump of dahlia tubers. They look like a miniature version of that, especially with them being plumped up. You just want to be careful not to break any of those kind of tuber-like spots. So there's chocolate. We're going to put our divider in here. And then we are also going to use some kind of pre-moistened potting soil to cover these in about an inch. I'm so pleased with how these look from the pre-sprout stage. And you want those little tentacle feet down into the soil. These guys got so big. That is going to be a big plant. These are the rose ranunculus from the flower hat that plumped up really large. Okay, that's about as much as gonna fit in this tray. Kind of see these here. Guys, my phone decided not to record while I was covering these with soil, but I covered them with about an inch of soil on top, and now we're going to provide a little bit of water. And now I'm going to store these in a cool, dark place for about 10 days. Then we're going to check on them to see kind of if any of them have pre-sprouted. You can also just wait until you see green foliage kind of coming up above the surface of the soil. But thanks for joining me today, guys. Again, ranunculus are one of my favorite flowers. I am so excited to see how these, several hundred do in the garden this year. Here's another update on the bin here. These guys are growing kind of at an insane rate. We already have several buds, and I have full confidence that these guys are going to bloom now. Didn't always think so. Wasn't sure how they would handle being indoors, but seems like that answer is good. 7 days later. It's an insane amount of growth. Thanks for joining me today, guys, and happy planting.